Let's call to order the Regional Transportation Commission meeting for Friday, November 15th with a roll call.
Morning. Sajid Sularia,
Here.
Devin Reese,
Here.
Alexis Hill,
Here.
Ed Lawson,
Here.
Bill Thomas,
Here.
Mari Luz Garcia,
Here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Hill, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, I'd love to.
It's in the back.
Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Anyone in the public wishing to make a comment at this time? See none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Hold on. We got to make a quick change. You want to make that change, Alexis?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a presentation on item 441, please, under the Public Transportation Operations Department items.
Okay. Now we can do approval of the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent items. Let's see. All right. Yep, just give me a motion for approval of all but 441.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Discussions and presentations. I'm going to receive a 4.4.1. See, I get ahead of myself. I'm in a hurry, Jim. We got to go canvass the vote this morning.
Members of the board, good morning. My name is Jim Gay. I'm the Director of Public Transit for RTC. Resolution 4.4.1 authorizes a contract between RTC and WSP for the performance of a commuter rail study connecting downtown Reno, downtown Sparks, and the Tahoe Reno Industrial Park. This is a corridor that is approximately 19 miles, currently has a UP, Union Pacific rail line, and we are going to study the potential of commuter rail to connect the population in Reno where the workforce is with the industrial park where the jobs are. This is a very exciting project for us. As a part of the scope of work, we will look at not only the capital costs, the ongoing operating costs, and the projected ridership. We will also be looking at first mile, last mile solutions within the industrial park, look at station locations to serve the potential riders, and grant opportunities. Most importantly, this contract will allow us to develop a package that we can share with UP for their review and hopeful approval so we can operate on their rail line. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the scope, but otherwise I would like to ask Mr. Thomas to talk about the funding of the project.
Thank you, Jim. I would at this time, I know Austin Osborne's here, the county manager from Story County, invite him up. As he's coming up, I wanted to make it clear to the board that I think this is the first time I've really seen like firm participation by everybody involved. And I think Austin's going to talk about Story County's commitment to this project.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. I'm Austin Osborne. I'm the County Manager for Story County. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I really just would like to start with a thank you to Mr. Thomas, as well as Chris Riley from the Governor's Office, Taylor Adams from EDON, and other members of this community and ours that I think really have put a significant effort into trying to pull in not only stakeholders but decision makers together in looking at ways to address transportation and other regional matters. And Story County, our team and myself are honored to be part of these conversations. And today to us is a kind of a monumental step in the right direction of working regionally. My board knows that I'm here. They're supporting our discussions of where we are at this point, and I'm prepared on December 3rd to bring to my board for consideration the items that are being discussed by you all here today. And, you know, at this point, we just want to really reemphasize that as far as coming together, working mutually toward resolutions, whether it's transportation, housing, even helping Story County implement its master plan update with housing and workforce housing expansion and other regional matters. This is really actually pretty exciting to us. We're really looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
And then I almost would like to point out, too, that we have had some commitments from the private businesses in the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center to also contribute towards this effort. So this really is going to be a jointly funded effort funded by RTC Washoe, NDOT, who's going to contribute $200,000 in rail funds they have, Story County, and then also some of the private interest out there. So I'm very proud to say and share with the board that this really is a interregional effort to address this issue.
Comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Osborne, for coming to our meeting today and expressing your interest in collaborating with Washoe RTC and really Washoe County on our mutual need to address transportation issues on that I-80 corridor. So I really appreciate that Story County is contributing to this study, and I look forward to continuing the partnership on these type of projects because I know our constituents, they don't want to have the pure burden of the issues that come from the Tahoe Regional Industrial Center that is so great for the region economically, but definitely weighs on our working community in Washoe County. So thank you for stepping up and being a partner and looking forward to future collaborations.
Mr. Reese?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I think this is a really exciting opportunity. I think there are a considerable amount of things that our region can do collaboratively. And our region is not just Washoe County, obviously. It includes the other counties and the Northern Nevada region writ large. But I do think it is also important that we consider the ways in which that transportation corridor has changed since the Tesla factory, Gigafactory, and then related businesses have moved out there. It's very exciting for our region. I think what happens is a considerable number of those folks live in Washoe County, and so those are the folks who are calling us when the traffic gets very difficult out there. If there's an accident on either side going out to the Tahoe Regional Industrial Center, we hear about it. So the opportunity to explore rail is, I think, very important. I'm not sure I understand the math, though. It says the approval of our decision today is a $797,517.81 approval not to exceed. But it sounds like, Mr. Thomas, there are other people who, are they contributing to that amount, or are they contributing above that amount? How much does the study itself cost?
The number thanks for that question. That's a good one to get it clearer on the record of who's going to be paying for what and how we're going to do this. So that price is the price that WSP gave us for the 3 phases, the 700 number that you mentioned.
That's the all-in number.
That's the all-in
Okay,
number.
great. How it's paid for beyond that, if it's divided out or if other people contribute some from the private, Story County comes to the table with some, that's not so much my question. I just wanted to understand what the total cost is. For our part at the City of Reno, of course, we have a rail station in downtown Reno, right? We also have an adjacent parcel that has some rail spur element to it. And so I'm not sure ultimately where it would generate or the origin would be. I assume it's one of those 2 locations. Certainly, I'm open to it being, in the city of Sparks too. I think they have some opportunities there. Wherever it amounts to, I think it creates opportunity for that area too, because if you create the transportation corridor for the future, which is running people back and forth between there, sometimes people want to live adjacent to it. They want to open businesses near it. And so it's not just the getting people from A to B. It's what happens at the start and the end point around those things. And so I'm excited for what might come. Obviously, what we all worry about as elected officials are studies that sit on shelves rather than studies that become reality. And so my hope is that WSP will be able to provide us with a path forward. And working with UP is often one of our bigger issues as a region because it's harder to get real face time or contact with folks there. But it sounds like WSP is a great partner in that space and really has the leadership knowledge and follow through to make it happen. So very exciting and certainly happy to support this agenda item.
Go ahead.
And Commissioner Reese brings up a question for me. So when we say we're spending the close to $800,000 on the study, will the RTC board then accept the donations, quote unquote, from our partners at a future board meeting? How will we ensure that it's transparent of
Just
who's?
gonna leave us a suitcase full of money.
I mean, I just want to make sure that we do. I just want to ask the next steps on making sure that we ensure our partners are at the table continually.
I am sure for all the partners who are contributing, there'll need to be some agreements.
Okay,
And
they'll
those we
come
can bring
before the
back
board.
to the board to show.
Thank
that
you.
Here's the agreements amongst all the parties.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, just from my point is you guys have always been good partners and we've met multiple times over the years and you guys have always stood behind us in working out these issues and the lands bill in particular, the new road, all the things that we've talked about in the past. And it just shows your commitment that you're here today with your suitcase full of money and willing to help out for everybody. So thank you. Any other comments from the board? Then we need an approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further, let me ask on Mayor Luz, do you have anything to say?
I'm excited for the study, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, receive a presentation from staff regarding the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Vanessa Lacer, Planning Director for RTC, and I'll be providing an update today on our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. Staff have been hard at work behind the scenes, so I'm pleased to be able to share with you some of the work we've been doing. So first, I'll just provide a bit of an overview, our development timeline. I'll provide a snapshot of what we've completed and things still on our to-do list. And then I'd like to dig in a little bit around project development and project prioritization, give you a sense of the methodology we're using there, and then leave you with some important next steps. So first, as you're well aware, we kicked off this process in the fall of 2023, and we are currently in the summer-fall 2024 bubble there, doing our future needs analysis, and we are on track for a spring 2025 adoption. So to date, we've completed quite a lot. We still have quite a lot to do as well, but we have completed the first round of our public engagement for the plan. We've held 5 agency working group meetings. We've completed plan visioning and goal setting. We've had a call for projects from our member jurisdictions. We've developed a project list. We've developed scope for all of those projects, as well as cost estimates. We've developed a project scoring tool in collaboration with our agency working group. We've completed project scoring. We've done draft chapter development and also completed a draft fiscal analysis. Still upcoming, we have some finalization to do of our fiscal analysis and draft chapters. We have to kick off our travel demand modeling. That takes the better part of a month to do. We also still have air quality analysis and conformity determination to complete. We have a second round of public engagement, which includes some draft plan presentations and then, of course, plan adoption. So now I'd like to dig in a little bit into our project development process. We started with the current RTP projects from the current plan. We then held a call for projects from our member jurisdictions to receive additional projects and combined all of those into a draft project list. Once we had that list, we were able to begin developing or confirming project scope for each project and then also developing an estimated cost. We ended up with 204 projects in total. And the types of projects we identified are we grouped into sort of 4 big categories: freeway, capacity, spot intersection, and multimodal. Some key steps in this process. First was that call for projects from jurisdictions. This ensured that each jurisdiction had the same bite at the apple. They were able to submit projects that were important to their communities and also the region. The development of the project scope was another key step, making sure that, for example, the current RTP project's scope were still applicable to today's conditions. And then also developing the estimated project cost was incredibly important. The understanding here is that the projects in this draft list, the majority of which do not have engineering associated with them, and these estimated project costs are really planning level. So we're using previous project costs and what we know material costs, et cetera, to be, develop those planning level costs with the expectation that as projects move into an implementation phase and we get new information, those costs will likely change. So once we had that draft project list with the scope and the estimated cost, we were able to move into this phase of project prioritization and project scoring. And to do that, we built a scoring tool. And again, we worked with our agency working group to get feedback on this tool. But the tool is based on our 9 plan goals that we have developed, again, in communication with the agency working group, taking into consideration federal and state goals. We also defined objectives for those goals. The objectives really are how we define success. So for instance, a success in a goal of safety would look different than success in a goal of accessibility and mobility, for instance. And so we use those goals and objectives to develop measures, metrics that would measure each project's ability to achieve the goals. The intention here is that projects that score very well, that score high, have the ability to meet most of our goals. So some key steps in this process. First was utilizing the plan goals to develop that project scoring tool. So grounding the tool in what we want for our region over the next 25 years. Scoring projects per project type. This was also important. We wanted to have like projects compete against like projects. So for instance, a capacity project was not competing against a multimodal project. And all of that went into creating these prioritized project lists per project type. So once we had those prioritized project lists, we were able to move into the final phase of this process to create a fiscally constrained project list. And this is a requirement of the plan. So we took into consideration the needs that were identified through these project lists. We then looked at the needs that would be present in the region over the next 25 years in terms of programming and transit. You saw those groups of projects. They did not include itemized transit projects. We will rely on our transit plans that we do separately from this RTP to identify those specific projects, but we do need to understand the cost of those. And so in this step here, we're taking into consideration the cost of our transit needs as well as programming. So RTC facilitates several important programs for the region, including our pavement preservation program. We want to make sure that's funded over the next 25 years. So taken together, the project list plus the program and transit needs, we understand sort of the cost that we're looking at. The next step here was developing projected revenues out to 2050, understanding what we can reasonably expect revenue-wise to be available in the region to build these projects and make sure we meet these needs. And then generally how this occurred with some nuances, which I'll get into a little bit. But we looked at the highest scoring projects and applied the funding to those first. And In our world, funding often has strings attached, so you can only spend it on one type of project or another type of project. So we had sort of these funding buckets. And as we're applying the funding to the highest ranking project, we continue to apply the funding until the money runs out. And that's generally how this process worked to create that fiscally constrained list. Some key steps here. First, we're developing the financial projections, making sure that we were conservative and practical in making those projections for revenue. The second, and here's where sort of the nuance comes in, is applying a project implementation criterion. So as I mentioned with project cost, project priority is different than the ability for it to be built. So we wanted to really take a practical look at implementation. So for example, we might have a project that scores incredibly high. It can meet all our goals, but it's not ready. Perhaps it's not ready for 25 years. Maybe it's ready in 10 years. This is something we need to think about. Is it ready to be built? And if so, when? So we're applying this implementation criterion to understand the timing of a project. And we're using cost, and we're using project readiness. And that can include a variety of factors. Do more studies need to be done? Are there other projects that need to come online first before this project can be successful? That kind of thing. And then finally, there was coordination with NDOT on the timing for state projects. So understanding when their projects could feasibly be built. So that's it in a nutshell, what we've been working on. I did want to leave you with some important next steps here. You've seen our to-do list, but these are the ones I think are important to note for this board and for our community as well. First, we plan to have the draft available January 3rd. At that time, we'll open a 30-day public comment period. That's our second round of public engagement, so we'll be seeking comments on that draft plan. As part of that comment period, we'll be doing some presentations in the community as well to gain feedback. We'll also be providing that draft plan for review by our plan agency working group, our technical advisory committee, as well as our citizens multimodal advisory committee. That's all occurring in January of next year. And then we're going to be seeking plan adoption in February of next year with a backup date of March, and that's when our deadline is for plan adoption. And that concludes my update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Vanessa. So two things I want to share with the board. First is that we're a bit under the gun with this project because it's required to be done by a certain date by the U.S. Department of Transportation. Unfortunately, the reason we're here is because we had a challenge recruiting the replacement for our planning director. So that put us way behind. But I personally believe it was well worth the wait because Vanessa's been a rock star in jumping into this and bringing this forward. So I'm very proud of the work she's done with her team to get us to this point. Because this is compressed, one of the things I would offer to the board members is individual meetings where we can go through the projects and give you as deep a dive as you want in terms of what the plan includes. Because it's going to be a challenge probably to do that in a public forum like this for you, all of you to feel comfortable about everything. So I will offer that to each and every one of you. We'll sit down with the Vanessa and whatever technical staff we need to be able to best answer your questions. But probably the most important thing to take away is the RTP is really a start. It's not a finish. And a lot of times, particularly the local agencies look at it as a finish. So it's just important to understand that that's really what this tool is. So again, I'll reach out to each of you to try to set a time if you're interested in going through it deeper.
Ms. Hill?
And thank you very much, and thank you for your hard work on this. I know the staff have also been working in the background before you came on, so I know that there's been a lot of work that has gone into this. But Ms. Lancer, did you engage the Tahoe Transportation District? I know they are not a governmental agency in necessarily. They do overlap in Washoe, but I just wanted to make sure that Tahoe was engaged in this because my Washoe County staff aren't necessarily
looking at Tahoe when you engage them on their projects?
Sure. I'm not certain of the exact representative, but we did have an inter-county group that we worked with as well. And the purpose really was to reach across county boundaries and make sure that the greater region was aware of what we were doing and able to provide feedback. And they'll be involved in that draft plan review as well.
Okay,
And so Tahoe
great.
is part of that.
All right, I just want to make sure that we weren't left out. Thank you.
Sure.
And I was looking at the calendar, and I think it will work out great because January 3rd gives us 3 weeks before the next board meeting to go over the draft plan. And if the board could just be emailed a link to it as part of, I know you're going to do your outreach to the community too, but that would be good so we could start to read through it before our pre-board meetings. But I'm looking forward to adopting this. This is really exciting to be on RTC to adopt the RTP.
Mr. Reese, you have anything? Nothing. Ms. Garcia, you have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would just clarify that both items 5.1 and 5.2 are information only.
Correct.
So there's no action requested or agendized.
You want an acceptance of the report?
I do not believe that's necessary, and
All right. Thank you very much. 5.2, receive a report and presentation from Simmons Group regarding its employee classification and compensation study for the Regional Transportation Commission.
Good morning, board members. I'm Laura Freed. I serve as the Director of Administrative Services. Agenda item 5.2 is the report out from our consultant of the classification and compensation study that the board approved back in March of this year. And in fact, the stimulus for the study reaches even further back to the culture study that was conducted in 2023, which recommended that we evaluate our classification and compensation structure, including pay for performance. So what you're going to see today from the ladies of the Simmons Group is the findings of that study. And again, as the council just noted, the action is only to accept the report. If the board has feedback or reactions to the report, we would ask that you share those with Executive Director Thomas or myself. And then after the presentation, I think the executive director and I will have a few follow-up comments for the board about the next steps that the agency staff should take. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Brittany Winters and Ann Simmons-Nicholson, our consultants from the Simmons Group.
Madam Clerk, can we turn the volume up on that mic a little bit? I'm lip reading.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, there we go. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for inviting us here this morning. We have a presentation. I know Michelle's going to put that up. So assuming I can use this, there we go. We'd like to do just a brief introduction of the team that worked on this project for Washoe County for RTC. And then we'll review the classification overview. And then we're going to, as part of that, what were the key objectives from the RFP and our methodology for coming to the recommendations and conclusions that we have provided. The classification and compensation study does include, and you have this report, it's the overall compensation market position of RTC, as well as a proposed compensation framework, some new classifications and job families, and if time allows, we will review some benefits, competitiveness, and recommendations. However, all of that is in the report. And then certainly leave it open to any questions. We want to be very respectful of your time today. I know you'll have a lot of things that you've got going. So this is the team that worked on your compensation and classification study. The total number of years of experience of these 6 people is over 150 years. Sometimes I feel like I have that myself, but it was not, that's not the case. All of these folks have contributed to the report to make sure that we had the most accurate data for you. I know all of you are aware of compensation and classification. It's an art and a science. We're giving you the science. We're giving you the data, the collection of the data and the comparables, and then the art is up to executive director and certainly the RTC team and the board to determine how it's going to apply to you. So our key objectives, these come directly from the RFP. Attract and retain qualified employees by ensuring the compensation and benefits is competitive in the local market. Conduct a comprehensive base salary and benefits study. Pay salaries in proportion to the assigned duties, and then accurately group those job classifications and with similarly complex duties and responsibilities. Provide justifiable pay differentials between job classes, and then provide recommendations to better align RTC's compensation system, both with public and private sector best practices. Again, straight from the RFP, just as a reminder, because it's been a while since perhaps you've seen that. Our methodology in the classification and compensation, our first step has to be to identify what the positions are that we are evaluating. So we completed every employee completed position description questionnaires or PDQs. And from those PDQs, we conducted 15 desk audits. That's where we actually sat with the people and talked to them about what they did, saw what they did each day. And if those desk audits had shown a large differential or a big differential in what we had in the job description from the PDQs, we would have done additional desk audits. They were very much aligned with the PDQs. And then based on RTC's job descriptions, we benchmarked and market priced 64 positions. I just want to note that this was a point in time. There are now more employees. I believe it's 68 at this point, but it was the 64 positions that we had when the survey was conducted. Let me take a quick sip here. We use the following data scopes. The first is industry, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. These were the industries that were surveyed: the government agency administration, highway and street construction, transit agencies, and transportation. Then the labor markets, the Reno metropolitan area, Las Vegas metro area, and Nevada as a state aggregate. And then we also looked at Sacramento as a potential recruiting source for people who might want to come to the light and come to the force. Sorry, anybody from California, my apologies. But being able to have an additional recruiting market. And then by organization size, we use the 50 to 100 headcount, and the organization size by annual revenue, 200 million to 500 million. So that is the private and public. When we looked at highway and street construction, transit agencies, and transportation, those were both private and public. I think that I'm going to keep moving. The sources that we used, and this is often something that board members want to know, the sources are very reliable sources. They're benchmarked. We benchmarked and market priced each job classification, again, in the relevant markets via several validated and highly reputable survey sources. Pay Factors it's a compensation professional. Salary.com, which is comp analyst market pay. Economic Research Institute, which is one of our favorites to use because there's a lot more raw data sets in the public sector in this particular survey. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, that 2023 salary was aged by 5% because it is roughly a year and a half old. So it was the 2023 data with a 5% increase. And then the U.S. Department of Labor, those are all the those are the market survey sources that we used. A minimum of 3 surveys had to be aligned in order for us to call it valid. That's a standard in compensation and classification. If one of them was an outlier, we brought in a 4th and in some cases, a fifth survey document or survey source to be able to ensure that we were giving you the most accurate data for the positions. The other resource that we used for benefits is the Kaiser Family Foundation, or KFF, Employer Benefits Study in 2023. We also used additional sources for a comparison of RTC's benefits in a peer group. And those peer groups, when we looked at the overall benefit, the relevant national and Western U.S. regional data was used in addition to the following peer groups' benefit plans: RTC of Southern Nevada, California Metro, Carson City JAC, Utah Transit Authority, Phoenix Public Transit, and Idaho Transportation. We analyzed RTC's current employer and employee contributions in comparison with national and Western U.S. region benefits data. And that footnote down below is the Western U.S. states that were included. So that is the methodology. The final piece around benefits is that from a major benefits category, this is what was analyzed. These are the things that people often look for in job interviews. They look for in order to make a decision: health and wellness, supplemental benefits, voluntary benefits, PTO, retirement and financial planning, as well as discounts, allowances, some other things that are what would be commonly referred to as your benefits package. We identified for RTC's consideration benefits growing in popularity but not currently offered from the KFF Employer Benefits Survey, and those are in your report. In the interest of time, we don't have them in the presentation. So in the methodology for broadening the pool of candidates, there are recommendations in the report around social media presence, the application process, some partnership recommendations, succession planning, and then a specific veterans program, which we've recommended, and many of our clients have utilized private and public with great success, which is SkillBridge. So with that, we want to move into the compensation and classification piece so that if there are any questions, we allow plenty of time for questions. So our survey findings are that the RTC market position, it compares current RTC annual base salaries to the market 50th percentile or median for each employee's respective position. That is the RTC's what is called compensation philosophy. We don't want to be the highest, we certainly don't want to be the lowest, so it's the median for each of those respective positions. RTC's average base compensation as an overall organization is at 112.4% of the 50th percentile. In simple language, which I'm sure you can all do this math, it's 12 percentage points above the market median. That's overall. We're going to break this down for you a little bit more specifically in just a minute. Our next slide will highlight the number, as I said, in just a minute, what percentage of team members who are leading, matching, or lagging the market 50th percentile. Leading obviously typically means that the employee's salary is above the market median by 5 percentage points, more than 5 percentage points, or greater than 105% of the median. Matching is they were within 5%, so 95 to 105% of the median. And then lagging typically means that an employee's salary is more than 5 percentage points below the market median. It's standard used throughout every compensation and classification professional or profession that does this. For the organization, the 50th percentile number of employees and then the percentage total. Leading or greater than 5% are 36 employees. So that's 54.5% of the employees. And again, it was 66 employees. I think I may have said 64 before, my apologies. This is a point in time. We had 66 employees. There are currently, I believe, 68. But there are 54.5% that are greater than 5% of the median. 20 employees that are that plus or minus 5%, so 95 to 105% or 30% of the population. And then lagging, greater than 5% below the median are 10 employees or 15.2%. That is, again, directly from the data. It's important to note here that RTC has made the decision, and we believe wisely made the decision, that based on this study, no RTC employee will experience a reduction in compensation. And some may receive pay adjustments based on, and it's important to note this also, a market adjustment. It's not a performance adjustment, it's not an annual review, but it's important, most important to note that no RTC employee is going to suffer a reduction in their pay based on these results. So proposed compensation framework, from the data that we collected, we are recommending 21 salary bands. The salary range midpoints will be based on the market 50th percentile, again, the RTC's compensation philosophy. 10% midpoint progression. So what that means is that if you, it provides a hierarchical system that enables employees to be promoted from one band to another, and this will help avoid salary compression. When someone gets promoted into another position, they can sometimes be making less than the people that they are supervising. So this will address that. And then 75% range spreads from the minimum to the maximum salary. This allows for the longevity, recognizing the difference of rates and pay for performance. So not everybody in the same salary band is going to obviously make the same amount of money. In the past, when I first started doing this work 43 years ago, the bands were much tighter. 75% was almost unheard of. It would be a 20 to 25% differential to a total of 50% differential. This gives you a lot more flexibility and accounts for the ability to promote people and continue to give them raises within that salary band. Some recommendations for those people that are lagging in the market. We would suggest that you review that base compensation for those who most significantly lag the market fair value, and that's by more than 5 percentage points, to determine if there's a base pay increase warranted. We would, from here, so until the end of 23, actually I'm going to say till the end of your fiscal year, we would suggest that you're good, that the data that you have is current, it is market-based, and the first full year after this, so next year, we would suggest that you look at, 2.5 to 2.9% adjustment to your salary bands. It is very typical that there is a number determined by your executive team and approved by this board that would keep you market competitive. The second year, we would suggest that you benchmark key positions by job families, specifically those job families that are difficult to hire for, very competitive. And then once you benchmark those key positions, consider an overall adjustment to the salary bands. And then the third year, in order to keep you current with the market as well as aligned with the market, because we don't know what's going to happen in 3 years, you would once again do a full compensation study. So that is a lot of information, and I'm sure you have questions, which we are happy to answer. Oh, sorry, let me give you the benefits. That concludes the compensation part, and I think we still have a few minutes if you'd like us to review this next piece. Okay. Benefits overall are market competitive or matching to leading the market. The key areas of healthcare access, the ones that we identified that people often consider when they change jobs. Healthcare premiums, paid time off, retirement planning. Compared to peer groups, RTC's benefits are competitive in the types and variety in healthcare plans, life and disability insurance plans, retirement and financial planning, and employee discount programs. You are leading in the peer group averages in the areas of employee premiums for single coverage, personal leave, and a dependent care flexible spending account option. Now, I'll get to those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love that you're creating the big bands because folks may want to be technical experts and may not want to be managers. And so I think that's great. But
Frequently called the guru track, which you're probably very familiar with.
yeah, I think that's great. And we did that at the county as well. Compensation studies are so controversial. So the board on a high level where it looks, I mean, to me, generally looks good. I have a few questions, but I do understand that hopefully we talk to the staff about how this is going to be implemented and what we're doing here, because at the county, we did this recently and it was so fun. But I think we made things much more fair, and we did not obviously reduce folks' pay, but, and I guess my first question is the 10 lagging positions. What are those positions? I'm having a hard time finding that in the report.
So the specific positions are.
Or just generally,
Okay.
like, what are they?
They're in the report, and I, off the top of my head, cannot give them to you. I can tell you that there is one person do you know?
Is it like
Going off the top
office
of my head.
assistant or engineer or planner? I'm just curious because at the county we found we were underpaying all of our office assistants. So what we did is we righted that. And then we found we were underpaying mid-management, and we righted that, but we found that we were on the right track with the upper management. So I'm just curious what those lagging positions are, salary-wise.
If I can answer that, I don't know that there was a particular category or family of employees that stood out.
Okay.
I think a lot of it had to do with, when we last looked at the positions. And, what you mentioned is really the challenge here. This is the art side.
Right.
Right? These are people's lives.
Yeah.
These are people's jobs. And so taking this information and turning it into something that is productive and not counterproductive is the important next step.
Right.
And what we plan on doing is taking this very valuable information, coming back to you at the beginning of the year, but ultimately well before we get into the start of the budget, to tell you what my recommendation with advice from the directors on how we implement this.
Okay.
Being unique to RTC, we are obviously a government organization. We're here, but we have some unique structure in the way we operate. Not the least of which is we have a small number of employees doing a lot of activity. So all those things will be baked into it. I certainly will sit down with any one of you individually, go through it. We intentionally tried to not point fingers at people, because this can become so personal.
Well, it's such a small organization. I was just curious because that was the theme in our study. So I was just curious
Were there certain categories?
Yeah, I'm not
that
trying
were-
to call out individual employees, but with 60 some odd employees, it's hard not to do that. So
Well, what I can tell you is that 85% of the org is matching or leading, so that's actually from a good place to start, and it still impacts them.
Yeah.
So there's one person that is lagging by more than 20% in their position, and there are 9 individuals that are lagging from 6 to 20% of the median. So the exactly what the executive director said is that now you apply all this data to your real life situations, and what are you going to do with any of those positions?
Yeah.
So.
yeah, and I think if the staff put in the studies and sat down with the Simmons Group, we want to make sure that we implement, carry out what we said we were going to do. Because I have been in an organization where there was a comp and class study and nothing was done with
Right.
it. And then just curious on, let's see. So we're not going to do pay for performance anymore with this new study, or is that still a discussion that we're having?
I would say we are not doing the pay for performance that was historically
The
done.
old pay for
Yeah.
performance.
How exactly we're going to bring forward the ability for people to be rewarded for
Right.
their performance is what we
Okay.
are working on.
Okay.
And we'll bring it back to the board. But yes, I think that was pretty clear in the culture study that people did not like the way we were doing it historically.
Great. And then one more. One issue you have with big bands is that you can hire employees at a higher, like when they come in at a higher rate than someone else who was hired. And that can create feelings of inequity in an organization, and it's personally happened to me, I know. So I just think that we need to be really cognizant and have some policies in place on the county said you will be hired at the starting position. That was our new policy with our new comp and class, and I think we need to be looking at that because sometimes minority groups, women can get hired at a lower rate because they're not as great of advocates sometimes when they're going through the hiring process. So I just want to make sure that we think about that when we're hiring new people.
We absolutely will, and as you well know too, this is the art part of it. And I don't know if you want to talk about that particular issue as far as setting a firm starting point.
In the report, you'll see that as our very strong recommendation, exactly what you just identified, that this is the number. And before that number can be exceeded, that there's an equitability research done, as well as there has to be a justification that would be so significant. For example, combining two roles that might create a different scope, which would then change the job spec. And that would be something, but if it's the same position, that is the hiring rate, and it's in our report exactly that way. Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of different thoughts and comments, but maybe I'll start with my comment, which is to say that our employees are obviously the most important thing about the organization. And so the reason for this board's willingness and desire to go and do the class and comp study is that we want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our employees who make the organization so strong. And so whatever we do, it should be with an eye towards improving their lives, the quality of their work environment. I am certainly encouraged by the summary of findings which identify this 85% either matching or leading. And obviously, I think the harder part becomes in the area where we're lagging. It's what happens in every class and comp study. And I think each of us, although I think each of our jurisdictions have gone through class and comp studies in the last 5 years and have had different experiences with those. I think Ms. Hill, as the chair at Washoe County, led the largest of them, and there were absolutely good things about it, and not everything was as dark as I think Ms. Hill's letting on. The leadership over there really carried to conclusion elements of that, and I saw that firsthand at the Northern Nevada Public Health, where Ms. Hill and other colleagues at the county had to really go in and fine-tune the results because it wasn't perfect when it came out, nor was it intended to be. And what we hope to not have happen is unintended consequences for any specific person. And sometimes the larger nature of the class and comp study doesn't look at the granular nature of a singular individual and how that individual's life is impacted. So with 66 people, I imagine we can do closer and better to that. It's much harder when the organizations get larger. I also note, just for my own curiosity, of course, the 66 employees that are identified here for the purpose of our class and comp study, who is not included in that number? So are there, like, is Mr. Thomas, are you included in the 66 here, for example?
Yes.
I think it's everybody.
The answer is yes.
And so, okay, so it's everybody, but it does not include our folks who are our drivers, our mechanics, our folks who are in the bargaining groups that are Keolis or MTM. Is that correct?
It includes everyone. We did, this was a snapshot back in March when we first received the data from Laura. So all the positions are accounted for in this leading, matching, or lagging. It's anyone hired after that. Those two positions, or maybe they have left the organization, were not captured in this breakdown.
Well, and maybe Mr.
Not
Thomas.
include, I'm sorry, neither Keolis
Yeah,
nor
so that's,
MTM.
I want to be clear. And
The RTC employees.
Yes. So,
Only RTC, yes.
and I wanted to make sure that I made clear my point, which is to say that we have now done a class and comp study for the RTC employees. I want to make certain that we are, perhaps it's not a class and comp study, but we can't go about improving the lives of the 66 people, let's just say, in the RTC side of the world, and ignore that there are a whole nother group of people, although we are not their direct employer. we can't ignore that those people exist. So I suppose ultimately my point in making the observation is to say that something similar has to be done for us to help evaluate where our non-RTC folks, we'll call them family, are exist in the world. Because what I don't want to have happen is like all the lagging folks get raised up, and we're not really thinking about the impact that has on the overall health of the number of people that are served by transportation organization writ large. And so that's really just a charge to you, to Mr. Thomas, to understand that we've got to also have some sort of similar analysis on that side to understand what is happening in that side of the world. And then the last thing I will say is that, of course, all of these decisions, when we have these kind of class and comp studies, impact a budgetary issue. And so when we get into the new year, what I worry about, and Ms. Hill alluded to, was the idea that we did a class and comp study and then nothing happens with it. And so I want to make sure that we are headed towards something happening with it, but also understanding that we are, as a region, I think, facing some difficult financial days. I'm not sure it's dark or stormy. It's more flat as far as I can tell in the region, and that's just coming from the perspective of a jurisdiction. Now, because our source of support comes from a different pile of money, it's not really C-tax driven and room tax driven, all these things, perhaps we are not going to have the same kind of up and downs that happen in those other areas. But I sort of am asking Mr. Thomas for you to tell us that there is a sustainable path forward to addressing the concerns raised by the report, and sort of foreshadowing that in the next year, as we look at our budget, that is what's of concern to me. Because as we see PERS increases coming down the pike, as we see a lot of different health insurance benefits costs are rising, all of our jurisdictions are trying to make sure that we lead in a financially sustainable way, but understand that our most important thing is our people. And so those are just my comments and thoughts about it, because it does us no good to have a great report and make all the findings, but then not be able to figure out a way to sustainably meet the obligations of that report.
My commitment to the employees is that I will bring something forward no later than the next budget cycle. I plan to do it much quicker. We're looking at probably January to start looking at closely. In February is our goal, to have something to present back to you. As far as the economic part, we will look at it from a sustainability standpoint. We know very well that even though our revenue sources are certainly limited in terms of how they can be used, and we only have a few, we are in a good place because we only do certain core things. But I and our finance department's eye will be on making it sustainable and fair to the employees. So my commitment to you is yes to both of those.
Okay. Ms. Garcia, do you have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to 6.1, a monthly verbal update message from the RTC Executive Director, Bill Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would prefer not to be making these announcements, but I do feel like it's important for the public and the board to know this. Once again, this past week, we had a fire, and I wanted to share with you our response and to also thank not only our RTC team that worked on it, but also our partners, MTM and Keolis, who stepped up and helped the community. MTM sent 5 paratransit vehicles to the Neuro Restorative Center. 10 people were transported and 3 of their staff. Keolis also staged a bus at Galena High School for anyone who needed transportation to get out of the area. So I want to specifically thank Jamie Borino, Taquan Jackson of Keolis, and Jessica Rutherford and Simon Batter of MTM for answering this call. They jumped in quickly and responded, and we are always part of the response team that's led by the emergency management system. So I wanted to acknowledge all of our team and let the board know that. Once again, we're holding our, excuse me, annual Stuff a Bus Holiday Food Drive to help our neighbors in need. This year's event is December 12th from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. We will park a bus at Sam's Club on Kitsky Lane to collect non-perishable food items. We'll take the bus to the KTVN Share Your Christmas Food Drive the next day to drop off the food. All of the food will be going to Food Bank of Northern Nevada. It's a great community event, and we're hoping we get some support from the community, which we have in the past, and we're very happy to be leading it. The date is December 12th. And it's the Kitsky, the Redfield, I think it's still called Redfield Shopping Center, there at Kitsky, the Sam's Club. I'd like to welcome our newest staff member. I think she's in the audience. There she is, Nicole Neri. Nicole started her job at agency service as the agency services supervisor the 4th of November. So this is her first board meeting, I believe, and I wanted to welcome her. She comes to us from HTA Plumbing and Mechanical, where she was the office manager for over 8 years. She has experience in administrative support, billing and accounts receivable, creating operating procedures, and supervision of other employees. She's replacing Leanne Olivas, who is moving into her new position as HR analyst, who happens to be there, yes. So I want to congratulate and thank both of them. I'd also like to congratulate both Josh McEachran. I always get your name wrong. McEachran. It's the ek part that gets me every time, Josh. Josh McEachran and Jeremy Latin for their first anniversary with RTC. Josh is, of course, you all are very familiar with him. Our public.
Can't pronounce his name either.
Yeah.
It's Josh M.
Josh M. Yes. We'll have to get that fixed. No. Josh has done an excellent job and has really moved us forward in our public information services. He's hit the ground running and quickly got up to speed on our projects. He's doing a great job getting information out to the public. I feel very proud about not only what he's done in that area, but also moving us forward on tracking performance. So we know our efforts are actually connecting with people, and that makes a big difference, as you all know, in the public information world, to make sure you're spending time and energy on things that people are listening to, or at least hearing what you're saying. Jeremy's our senior financial analyst, leading the way on our grant applications. Since he arrived, DOT has awarded the RTC with a Safe Streets for All planning grant. We are waiting to hear if we're successful in 2 other grants we have in the process, and I want to thank Josh and Jeremy for all they've done to keep RTC a well-functioning organization. I'd also like to give a shout out to Wesley Hall. Is he here today? He's probably out shoveling snow. For his 5 years at RTC, Wes is one of our facility maintenance specialists. He's been doing a great job to keep our properties in good condition, including our bus stops around town. So I want to congratulate and thank Wes. I'd also like to congratulate, I think I have a little picture. There it is, the newest addition to the RTC family. Alex Wolfson and his wife recently had a son, Keon, who's up here on the screen. Both the mom and the baby are doing fine, are at home. And Alex is, of course, as we definitely would like to see, he's spending time with them in this exciting time. We want to wish the Wolfson family all the best in their new addition and their growing family. So I'm going to close my comment with the Employee of the Month acknowledgements, which we do each month. So the MTM Employee of the Month is Michael Willing. Michael has been serving the community as in an MTM uniform for 1.5 years, but chose driving as a career long before that. He plans to stay behind the wheel at Access or FlexRide buses for the foreseeable future. He says it's the people that keeps him motivated. Outside of work, he likes to go to movies, fish, and care for his dog, Coyote. Michael's family is in Central California, and he likes to visit them. So thank you, Michael, for all you do for RTC and our passengers. And then I want to acknowledge the Keolis Driver of the Month, who is Nori Suda. He has worked as a bus operator for RTC since May of 2020. His accomplishments in October consist of 97% on-time performance, 0 preventable accidents, and no customer complaints. He loves his career and wears a bright smile each day at work. So I want to congratulate him and tell him how much we appreciate his effort, as well as the people who in the community who benefit from his driving. That concludes my presentation this morning.
Thank you, sir. Paul Nelson.
Good morning. Paul Nelson, Government Affairs Officer for RTC. So Congress is back in session now that the election is over. With Republicans winning the White House and both houses of Congress, we will see some reshuffling on the Republican side. One of those could be Congressman Amodei, who right now is the subcommittee chair on appropriations for the Department of Homeland Security. We could see him move to a different position in subcommittee as a result. Most legislation in the Senate has to be bipartisan because of the 60-vote threshold, so the Senate leadership will have to work with Democrats in order to pass anything. Republicans will use their 53-seat majority to extend the 2017 tax cuts through the reconciliation process. Lawmakers will likely delay fiscal year 25 appropriations until March instead of trying to get back and get everything done until by December 20th. As you guys have probably seen, Senator Thune from South Dakota will be the Senate Majority Leader. President-elect Trump has vowed to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, but the law is actually helping out a lot of these red districts a lot more than the Democratic districts. So a lot of the Republican senators are actually lobbying to keep those in place. The plan could be to trim it down instead of having a full repeal. Credits targeting EVs and renewables could be the most vulnerable. The priorities will likely change as well during the last 2 years of the bipartisan infrastructure law. Expect less emphasis on climate, equity, and social justice considerations on the merit criteria for traditional road and bridge projects. We can also expect the Trump administration to prioritize rural highway projects in the RAISE grant program similar to his first term. From fiscal years 18 to 20, about half of the RAISE money was actually used for highway expansion projects. And FHWA has announced its Protect NOFO. We do plan on applying for this grant for the Sun Valley Community Gateway project, just as a backup in case we're not successful on the Reconnecting Communities grant. And those awards will be announced early next year. The Protect application is due in late February. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. NDOT.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and everybody here. I'm going to start off with the presentation here. Let's see if it loads up. As at the last board meeting, Director Larkin mentioned about the $275 million federal grant that we received for I-80 between Vista and USA Parkway. At that time, we just heard of the grant news, so I just wanted to give some update. It'll be a good opportunity to give update where we're at as a department on this project. The slide shows here we are working on NEPA right now, and NEPA is anticipated to be completing summer of 2025, and then we will begin the final design and construction commence in the upcoming years. What is the scope of the project? I just want to highlight some of those things. Obviously, one additional lane on each direction. We will be looking for widened shoulders, add safety improvements, and interchange improvements as well. As we know, like any other project, this will be an expensive project with some substantial geotechnical, structural component of the work, and other challenges that we face right next to the alignment is Truckee River, UPRR, and some overhead utilities. Those are the challenges that we'll face as we move along with the project. This grant really helps towards the necessary funding for the project, and we as a department will evaluate at the appropriate time how we want to deliver this project, either in one phase or multiple phases as the funding will allow us to do so. As we all know, 50,000 drivers travel through this corridor every day, and we look forward to improving the mobility and safety and supporting our economic development, which this will help and benefit entire region and beyond. So this is really important. We are very excited to receive this grant, even though it's not all the funding that we need, but this is a step in the right direction. Next, I want to kind of highlight our bicycle safety. Tragically, as of October 31st, there have been like 13 bicycle deaths statewide. There's only like, including 3 bicycle deaths in Washoe County. Our active transportation bicycle and pedestrian team educate Nevadans about bike safety and walk to our communities through community outreach. We do that about 15 times a year, developing a bicycle safety curriculum, also administrating safe routes to school. We fund that as well, bicycle safety training. This slide really highlights, in October, our active transportation bicycle and pedestrian team became certified cycling instructor through the League of American Bicyclists. The 3-day training course that covered hazard avoidance, safe positioning in traffic, and how to ride in leading groups. Our our certified trainers will be hosting bicycle safety classes in our schools and across the community. Now they are certified, so they will do so. This will be additional measure along our zero vision for the Truckee Meadows and Biggest Little Bike Network, enhancing bicycle and pedestrian safety across our community. So just want to highlight our certification for our folks, and that's even better for everybody to get more training for that. Okay, the next one, a little bit of exciting as we move into Thanksgiving holidays. Also wanted to kind of recap the Halloween event. NDOT and our Nevada State Police and DMV hosted a second annual Trunk or Treat event in South Reno DMV building. Why am I bringing this up? I think this is the one way we are able to provide safe and fun Halloween experience for our community. So I think it's important to highlight these events and provide an environment where our children can go out of the elements. So. Lastly, as you can tell this morning, if you haven't really, I think there was some snow out there, we are ready for winter. We inspect, maintain, and repair our equipment needed for winter highways maintenance, especially in our district here, in District 2. We hire seasonal highway maintenance workers, and we review our snow and ice plan. We hired additional maintenance staff and meet the local partners to discuss what will be needed in the upcoming season. We also are ready to go stockpile about 30,000 cubic yards of salt and sand that will be needed for traction in our highways here. We are using also on the slide here, you can see on the far bottom, simulating driver training that is we leased for about a year. Will be rotated through across our districts. This is about 2.5-day training versus 40+ hours that we needed when you have actual CDL training, and it really helps us and also lessen the wear and tear of the equipment as the new plow drivers are trained. So it's a really unique program throughout the country, and we are really seeking the benefit of that. And as you can see, Director Larkin was able to try this out, and this is just the instructor's word. She said the trainer told her that if the director gig doesn't work out for her, she'll be a good plow driver. So just wanted to, highlight that her message was. And yes, as the last Monday, we had our fire, as Bill mentioned, and a weather event. So yes, in the same day, you will see our DMS signs could be saying fire, road closed, or there's snow on the road. So if it make it confusing, it can happen. So that is my update.
Thank you. Let's move on to commissioner announcements and updates. Do you have anything? Nothing? Ms. Garcia, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Well, for me, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And if you need something to do Thanksgiving morning, we have the turkey trot in Spark, so you can work up an appetite. And it's a great family event. We usually have a couple thousand people there, and it's just fun to get out and see your neighbors too. Okay, public comment. Mac Rossi.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Mac Rossi. I'm here not as a public comment, but more as a reminder. I've been working on 2 projects in the Ward 5. Ward 5, thought I could get his attention. And one project has been going on for 9 years. It's over in Keystone in North McCarran. There is 800 apartments over there that come onto McCarran and can only turn right. They have gone ahead and RTC with NDOT and the city of Reno have okayed to put a signal in there so anybody going north can also make a north without having to make a U-turn a couple quarter miles away. This project, like I say, has been going on for 9 years, and it was going to be completed last summer. It was delayed until spring of this year, and then summer of this year. Now it's moved till next year. The other project I've been working on for 5 years is a bus stop on 7th and McCarran. It's in a designated right-hand turn lane with 3 lanes of traffic designated for that lane. It's not ADA approved, and it was supposed to be in process of being completed this summer. Now it's been delayed again. I want to just I'd be here to remind you, and one thing I just thought I'd bring up, that there's a comedian that has been on the circuit for quite a while, a blue-collar comedian, name of Larry the Cable Guy. I don't know how he got his name, but he has a slogan, and he has it on his hat and on his T-shirts, and it says, "Get her done." RTC, I'd ask you to do your part to get her done. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais, and we are adjourned.